doesn't matter if this is paid or volunteer. It is 100% on the member itself. If you don't have drive, and I use these words, it's one word, care. If you do not care about yourself or others, then the fire service is not for you. You're not in it for the right reasons.
We don't talk about the individual much. You know, we complain a lot about the individual, but we don't talk about the traits and characteristics that we need in these people coming in. Care is a word that's not, you know how many guys don't talk about care like that word? I don't know if we've ever discussed it on this platform. No. It's a fantastic word.
Honestly, it's a very small, simple word, but it means so much.
Agreed.
You know, you care about yourself. You care about doing what's right. You care about the individuals around you, and everything else is going to fall into place. Once you take the word care out, or you are not basically attached to it with emotion and the ability to give it 100% all the time, then it's time to maybe sit back and reconsider, is this the right thing for me? You really need to give it your all. And sometimes, and again, in the volunteer house, you walk in, you might be on the fence. You might not know, is this the right thing for me?
Right.
Maybe I want to try this thing out. Maybe I realize it isn't the right thing for me. Or maybe you realize, I love this shit. I want to stay in this, and I want to continue to grow with it. And who knows where it goes from there.
Hey everybody, this is Rob from National Fire Radio. We have a pretty cool episode tonight, and it's a little bit personal to me, guys. Like saying it's kind of like a homecoming. But I got Jon Stern and Brian Soller. I want to introduce both of them. For me, like I was actually a very young volunteer when I got to meet both of these guys in kind of their up and coming prime. Jon is a paramedic with Mobile Medic who had an ambition to become a career firefighter, and kind of gave me the ambition and drive to seek out my career. And then I got to watch Brian as a fire chief when he was with the village of Monticello, and kind of watch him come up through the ranks and just work calls with him, because at the time I was working for an ambulance company in Monticello. And it was just a great to kind of see these two guys and have positive role models in the fire service. And now they're here, and they're both doing a little bit thing. So Jon, why don't we start with you, kind of where you're from, and we'll go from there.
All right, Jon Stern, originally from Rock Hill, New York, Sullivan County, which is about an hour and 30 minutes northwest of Manhattan. Started really when I was 16 years old. In 1993, I walked into the Rock Hill Volunteer Firehouse, and I actually went there with my parents and filled out an application. Both my parents thought that this was going to be a very short-lived thing, and now it's a career for me. So it's odd to think in 1993 to where we are now in 2020 that it's lasted this long. But I'm very proud and happy that I went down this career path. Currently living in Northern Virginia. I work for Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C., approximately 5 to 8 miles outside of the district, and lieutenant with the fire department there. I'm pretty excited to be on here. I'm honored to be on here and discuss where I am today, where I was back then, and hopefully where I'm going in the future. So,
awesome. Thanks, Jon. And Brian, yourself?
Oh, so very similar to Jon. A few years earlier, 1990, I walked into the Monticello Firehouse about 5 miles up the road from Rock Hill, and became a volunteer firefighter. No immediate family with fire service background. My grandfather was a founding member in a company in the county. I really did not get to know my grandfather as a child growing up, so I really didn't even know about that history. Worked my way through the ranks there, became the chief in 2001, 2002. That's a combination department. In 2011, I decided to make a change, and I joined Rock Hill, where Jon started his career and was an assistant chief at one time. And I'm currently the chief of that department. So I've had a great career, a lot of fun. I also teach out at the County Fire Training Center, and it's another job that I just love doing. And you know, thinking about it, 30 years has passed. It's hard to believe. You know.
I was going to say that. I mean, you know, Jon brought up 1993, and I'm like, finally, a younger, older guy than me, right? Because I started in 95. And so on. Looking at you guys, I look like hell. You guys look
I know.
older. But,
We really got to work out.
Hey, Rob, thanks for the intro on the podcast, by the way. I appreciate it, pal.
No problem.
Yeah.
Jeremy Dosh, everybody, he's still here. Anybody's missing him.
I think, no, never. Brian, I think one thing, too, you know, about your past and where you are today, but also I think it's important to mention the professional volunteer, right? So please.
Yeah, absolutely. So this year I started a podcast called The Professional Volunteer. And, you know, one of the things that has been driven into me throughout my career is that, you know, even though I'm not on the job, I'm not getting paid to do what I do, that I need to do it to the best of my ability. And it doesn't matter that I'm not getting a paycheck. And I've always preached that to my firefighters and my members. And, you know, if I'm out at the training center teaching, I always have the same message that people expect you to act professionally and perform professionally, whether you're getting off a volunteer fire apparatus or a career fire apparatus. That was kind of the driving force behind me starting that podcast, was to continue to get that message out to a larger audience.
Well said. I couldn't agree with you more. So absolutely. Rob, what's the deal with these guys? How do they relate to each other, man? Why do we got them both in here tonight?
We got them both in here because it's just kind of an interesting path that the two of them have taken, that it's like one of these is the same but not quite like the other, and they both chosen a very professional path. So Jon obviously going on to become a career firefighter, work his way down to Virginia, and you were in Manassas volunteer as well, right, Jon?
That's correct. Yep.
And then Brian doing a very similar path, but just kind of watching him go from being this firefighter to the fire chief and keeping that professionalism going. Like a lot of the times when I watch Brian, or like when I was in high school and I was working in this ambulance, and just kind of knowing about what Monticello has done in the past and what Rock Hill has done, it reminds me of something Chris Hyatt told me. He was a Kingston firefighter, and back in the old Ferndale station for Hudson Valley Ambulance, he was partnered up with a volunteer from Callicoon. And the guy's like, "Oh, I'm just a volunteer." And he said, "No, man, you're not a volunteer. You're a professional." Like the volunteer aspect's just whether you get that paycheck, but the person who's dialing 911, they expect you to be professional because you're the one coming to solve the problem. So don't ever just tell yourself you're just a volunteer. And both of these guys had such a good work ethic about being professional. I mean, like I said, they remember me in a very different light as a young smart ass kid, but they probably got some stories. But
now you're just an older smart ass
right.
fireman.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think what's cool about the relationship and having you both here tonight, not only are you guys friends, obviously, and the three of you have a background together, but, you know, it all starts with a solid foundation. Jon, are you first generation, right? You said your parents brought you down to the firehouse, right?
Correct. No fire service background history in the family.
And Brian, you're the same, right? You said that your father was, but you didn't really know him, and so
right.
First generation as well. So what I find really interesting is, like, I know my guys in my firehouse that are first generation. It's an interesting conversation to have with them to see how they ended up here. How did they get here? And then what's keeping them here? And I think with you guys, you know, the common core seems to be Rock Hill, this area of New York, and then the foundation that's probably laid within that department to produce top guys.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I'll let Jon start on that one because he was there a lot earlier than I was. But
can you, Jon? I mean, you mind talking about the culture? I mean, what was the draw, and then what kept you there, and then what made you want to push out and go bigger and grander and on a larger scale?
Right. I would say that, and I think the fire service uses the word tradition and brotherhood probably hand in hand with each other. And sometimes you hear things like tradition and brotherhood are leaving the fire service and we're going in a different direction. I can tell you that in Rock Hill, that is why I joined Rock Hill, and that's why I stayed in Rock Hill. And Rock Hill to me is the reason why I'm where I am today. It is the foundation of who I am. From the minute I walked in, and even now, even I'm not obviously an active member there. I don't live over there, but I'm still treated as a brother, as a family member. And I've given a lot of time and devoted a lot of time to that place. And in return, they've done a lot for me as well. Being a young junior firefighter in 1993, and seeing 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old, members in there, and all ready to show me, teach me, put me under their wing and kind of show me the ropes. And I obviously feel like that was the foundation of why I stayed in the fire service. I had a very good experience in Rock Hill. The members there are 100% into the professionalism of the fire service. It does not matter a paycheck or not a paycheck. They're there to do the job. They're there to teach, and they are there to basically promote and recruit more Jon Sterns. I mean, that's the bottom line. You walk in the door to Rock Hill and you fill out an application and you are serious about being the best you could be, they're going to give you everything that they have.
That's outstanding, because you know how much that doesn't happen anymore? Right?
Yeah.
I'm sure with your platform and speaking to guys across the country, I mean, I'm sure you see it firsthand, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And John's 110% correct. I've talked to so many guys prior to doing the podcast from around the state. You go to a place, you go to a conference, you go to the fire academy, you sit down at a table with guys and you hear the stories, and not everybody is that fortunate, and the culture in Rock Hill is phenomenal. And like you said, there's guys and girls there from 16 to in their 70s, and it doesn't matter what their age is, what they bring to the table. Do we argue from time to time? Yeah, absolutely. Everybody does. Do we have disagreements? Do people not see things the same way? Sure. But the biggest difference that I have seen and experienced is I can go head to head with somebody at a Thursday night meeting. And when that meeting is over and we walk out the door, we walk out into the other room and we're having a slice of pizza or whatever, or the alarm goes off, it's done. It doesn't make its way out to town. You don't hear it throughout the neighborhood the next day. It's done. It's over, and you don't hear about that often. You hear about things getting personal and guys you hear about this culture that's not a friendly culture, and that's not the case. I could not be more honored to be the chief where I am right now, because these guys are great people to lead.
What I find interesting here, and what I try to always get to, is why. Why is the culture good? Why does that happen? When you travel around and go to a lot of different departments and you get to see what's out there, whether career or volunteer, and on our platform, and Rob, mistake me if I'm wrong, but we've never distinguished whether you're career or volunteer. It doesn't matter to us, right? And Brian, along your terms, the professional volunteer, it's just the job. Like, it doesn't matter if you're a career volunteer. We don't distinguish on this platform. We never have. And I'll take anybody to task on that, frankly. I mean, I don't think we need to distinguish the difference between and so on. But where I'm going with this is, like, a culture like that and a department like that is flourishing and producing Jon Sterns and putting out a good end product for their people and the services they provide. Why?
Well, I think one of the things that comes out of it is, like, and this is from being in Youngsville, where I got my start in the fire service, is like, you go into Rock Hill's Firehouse and you look at their membership, and their membership's a part of the community. And that's kind of like, everybody says, well, yeah, no duh, it's like the local fire department, but it really is a part of the community, because when something happens there, like, and I think, I don't want to say that there's not community fire stations or there's not community departments, but, like, to see that kind of interwoven knit that happens, like, because if something bad happens in Rock Hill, it's not just that, like, the fire department just doesn't respond and then the fire's out and they go home. Like, that's only the start of the process. So, like, the rigs get back in service, and then it's like what they're doing to help the people in the community, and because they probably know them, they probably work alongside of them. Their kids go to school with them, and it's not just a tragedy of that person they responded to; it's a tragedy of the department. And I think, I mean, just from my observation of Rock Hill alone, and where I'm in, where I was in Youngsville, it's everybody's problem at that point. And I think it just helps bond the group a lot better because it drives the culture of wanting to do your best. I know in Youngsville, like, it was always a you know, like, we wanted to be the best we could be, because if it's somebody's barn burning down, that's their livelihood. If it's their personal business that they've sunk every, you know, blood, sweat, and tear into, like, we don't want them to fail, and we want to help save that. And I mean, that's just, like I said, it's one
Jon,
observation.
Jon, how much of it is personal, meaning internal, right? I mean, I think a lot of the conversation needs to focus on the actual individual. Obviously, we're influenced, and when you join a volunteer firehouse at 16 years old, or get on the job in your early 20s, you're still very impressionable. So the institution definitely molds and shapes you, but you have to have drive and determination on your own, no?
100%. Yeah. I mean, if it does, again, doesn't matter if this is paid or volunteer. It is 100% on the member itself. If you don't have drive, and I use these words, it's one word: care. If you do not care about yourself or others, then the fire service is not for you. You're not in it for the right reasons. And
I love that. Talk about that more, man, because we don't talk about the individual much. You know, we complain a lot about the individual, but we don't talk about the traits and characteristics that we need in these people coming in. Care is a word that's not, you know how many guys don't talk about care? Like that word. I don't know if we've ever discussed it on this platform. No. It's a fantastic word. Jon, go with that, man.
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, it's a very small, simple word, but it means so much.
Agreed.
You know, you care about yourself, you care about doing what's right, you care about the individuals around you, and everything else is going to fall into place. Once you take the word care out, or you are not basically attached to it with emotion and the ability to give it 100% all the time, then it's time to maybe sit back and reconsider, is this the right thing for me? And you know, if you give care out, care is what you will receive in the end. And I totally 100% believe in it. You really need to give it your all. And sometimes, and again, in the volunteer house, you walk in it, you might be on the fence. You might not know, is this the right thing for me?
Right.
Maybe I want to try this thing out. Maybe I realize it isn't the right thing for me. Or maybe you realize, I love this shit. I want to stay in this, and I want to continue to grow with it. And who knows where it goes from there. You know, you can stay in the volunteer service and you can continue blossoming through the ranks, bettering yourself through education and training. And if the time is right and it works for you, maybe it's time to move on and maybe get, you know, into a career service as being paid for it, or stay where you're right there in your local volunteer service and continue to provide that care. Provide the best care, professionalism that you can do. It does not matter if you're getting paid for it or you're volunteering in Rock Hill, New York, or somewhere in the middle, you know, of the United States. You keep pounding at it. You give it your all, and the all is what you're going to get in return.
I think what fuels the betterment of any club, agency, organization, you name it, is people that want to better themselves, right? Because the collective whole is what makes the organization better. But if you're not in a good spot, if you're not secure in yourself, or you don't believe in your abilities, or you don't believe in your convictions or opinions, you're not going to bring much value to the team, no? Brian, what do you think?
Right. I agree 100%. I mean, I wrote down two things while Jon was talking. I wrote down passion and personal accountability. right?
Nice.
If you don't have passion, for this job, regardless of what your status is, you're not going to be good at it. Jon, when he was a volunteer, when he was a paramedic and EMT before that, he was a passionate guy, and he was a passionate young guy at the time. When Jon was assistant chief in Rock Hill, I was the chief up the road in Monticello. We were both passionate guys. We went head to head from time to time as passionate guys. We used to fight over district lines and all kinds of stuff, because we both cared about our agency. We cared about the job. We wanted to be the best that we could be, At the end of the day, we remained friends because we knew that we were just passionate about our agencies and what needed to be done. But if you don't have that passion, or you don't have that personal accountability to consistently make yourself better and then to make your agency better, right? You're not helping anybody, right? Because at the end of the day, sure, I need to be the best I can be, but it's a team sport. So I need to help bring other people along for that ride.
I agree. And all of that fuels that culture, right?
Absolutely.
Your foundation is a department built on individuals that believe in themselves and their convictions and what they bring to the team. And then that team builds up the individual so that when you have Jon Stern, the impressionable 16-year-old kid walking in the door, that machine is already in place to make him a bigger and better person, not just firefighter, but person, right? I mean, how many guys, it doesn't matter, how many guys grow up in the firehouse? Everybody does, right? If you're truly into the job, you grow up in the firehouse. Your friends are in the firehouse. Your personal friends grow around the firehouse. Your family grows up in the fire. My kids walk into my firehouse, they know every single guy by name, and every guy in the firehouse knows my kids. And it's just the way it should be, right? Those are things that take time and individuals that are willing to invest the time. I think that's super important to the investment, right? A lot of times we're seeing guys get into it for their own gratification or their own reasons, and not there for the right reasons at times, right? I mean, a lot of guys are there, they talk about the T-shirt and all that crap, right? And I hate things like that, but it's kind of true, right? It kind of sums it up that there are guys, and every department has them, that these are the guys that are in it for themselves, and while they're there, they're not leaving a positive outcome, and so they're tearing down all the work that's been laid before them.
Yeah, I agree with that. You again, you keep those guys in check, because unfortunately, those are the guys, if you let that message and that attitude fester, that's what can change the morale and change the direction of an organization. And you need
very easily.
Yeah, and you need to outnumber those guys or take those guys on, straight ahead. You can't let it continue to you can't have a negative attitude festering in the fire station.
It's cancerous.
Do guys shy away from conflict, though, man? Like, I've never seen it more so now than ever. We'd rather now change the rules for everybody than address the one individual that caused that rule change.
Yeah, but I think that's a cultural problem. Like, that's not just in our fire service.
That's my point.
We don't teach that in schools. Like, it's like, I mean, I not that like I condone violence, but like, what happens if like in high school I was going, like, if you got upset somebody, you got in a fight, and then it was over. Kind of like what you guys were relating to before about like, if there's a problem with somebody, you go to blows with them in the firehouse, but once you walk in the next room, it's over. The bell goes off. You check that shit at the door. That's not happening in our own like upbringing. Like, we're not teaching people how to have conflict communication and get over stuff. So it rolls over into the firehouse. And now, like, because I know for me, like, sometimes it's like, hey man, you're not doing this right, and they're like offended. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're not all that in a bag of chips right now. I'm sorry.
I love calling guys out right on the floor. You get back from a run and you call them out on something, and they look at you like, how dare you talk to me like this? And I'm like, listen, fellas, I've been doing this a long time. Like, you screwed up. We're going to make it better right now. We don't address it now, and I let you go home. We're never gonna tackle this topic again. I think one of the best things that ever happened to me was getting punched in the face and almost getting knocked out. It was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. And I think every kid needs to be punched in the eye. Firmly believe it. I firmly believe it.
You know, I think one of the biggest cultural challenges and is the 16-year-old Jon Stern of today when they walk into the firehouse. You know, when I joined the firehouse, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for John and probably you guys as well. You know, when you were a probie, you were there, like you were always there. And if you couldn't be there, you would go out of your way to tell whoever the chief or the senior officer was at the time, hey, listen, you know, I'm going somewhere with my family this weekend. I won't be around for that special detail or that drill, whatever. You would go out of your way to get that message to the leadership. Now, you know, if you're not cultivating that culture, and you take that same 16-year-old kid, like they expect you to wait on them hand and foot. You know, it's like yeah, they just don't show up. You know, so it's important that you know, when you get them young, you gotta, kind of like you said, Jeremy, you gotta punch them in the face.
I had a kid a couple weeks ago miss a fire because he wasn't feeling well, and I'm like, were you home? He's like, yeah, but I turned my pager off because I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
Yep, that silence right there between the four of us sums it up. Right? Like I want to go to a fire. I want to go to a fire every single minute of my life. I want to go to fires. Like, and that to me, like, I actually pulled that kid aside and I said, listen, man, I'm like, one, don't ever admit that to anybody. Two, I go, we got to talk about this because you have to understand, like, that's where you want to put what we're teaching you and ingraining into you, these skills and all of this training. Now it's time to put it to work. I go, we don't get that opportunity. We go to maybe I go to 20, 30 fires a year, right? Like jobs. And I'm like, we don't get that often to go to that many fires. So like, it's game time. You got a sore throat, pal? Suck it up, man. You'll be healthy in a couple days. Like, you'll be fine. Like, you don't have the ability to say no. And that's where, like, when I was young, and even now, I don't have the ability to say no, man. I still run out the door when it's work, you know, like I drop everything, you know. It's instilling that, right? And that's some of the disconnect where I sit here and shake my head, and I'm like, man, I go, you gotta be in it. You gotta be in it. But anyway, killing this topic, Jon. Let's talk about your career. How did you end up down in Virginia?
Yeah, it's a great question. So let's go back 1999. 1999, I took the test in FDNY, and I did fairly okay on the test. You know, you talk about FDNY test, and when you can score over 100, like 115 and 120, when they start giving you, and I don't know if it's still the same way, but you get resident points and you get, you know, vet points and family, you know, prior family points. You know, my score of, and I think it was like 97 or 98, is still not good enough.
Sure.
When you're talking, you know, 115, 120 points. So I ended up making a commitment to myself to go out and start taking other tests. And, you know, I wanted to go to areas that were drivable from living in Sullivan County, New York. So I drove down, took a test for the City of Alexandria Fire Department, which is another right outside of the District of Columbia on the Virginia side department. Went down with two other buddies actually from Sullivan County, two other volunteer firefighters. We got a motel hotel, took the test, walked out of the test, and the guy that was parked next to us had a New York license plate, and we started bullshitting. And he said, we just talked, and he said, hey, have you heard about Fairfax, Virginia? And I said, no. And
Yeah.
he's like, well, you know, it's an up and coming department. They're continuing to grow. They're real close to here. You might want to, you know, maybe search it and see what they're about, see if they're hiring. And I ended up doing it. I went back to New York, searched Fairfax County, saw that they had an open application process, filled it out, and started, you know, basically going down from New York to Fairfax, Virginia, taking their 7-test process over, you know, a year and a half time span. Yeah, it's a pretty extensive. It's pretty detailed test process that they have. But anyway, a year and a half into the process, I got a phone call that offered me the job. I was a little nervous about it, And after, consulting with some close friends and actually going back to the firehouse in Rock Hill, the volunteer firehouse there, and talking to some of the firefighters there that I looked up to, some of the senior members, I wasn't sure if this was the right move for me. And everybody said the same exact thing, which is you need to go where your heart wants you to go. This place is always going to be here for you. If it doesn't work out, you can always come back. And I ended up doing that. I'm on the job now 17 and a half years in Fairfax. So it's crazy to think it was that long ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday.
Oh, I bet.
Now,
That's cool. I know. Go ahead, Rob. Were you gonna say something?
yeah, no, just because I know, John, I kind of like what's the connection with Manassas?
Yep. So I had the itch to volunteer again. So I moved down here. 2003 is when I got on the job in Fairfax. After going through recruit school, they have a 26-week, 6-month recruit school. Got assigned to a firehouse, and I would say about 3 or 4 months after being assigned to a firehouse and coming out of recruit school, I said, you know what, I need to volunteer. I still want to volunteer. I still want to help out. I still want to do more,
Well, it's that camaraderie too, right? You're in a new area, right? You're looking
absolutely.
at friends and yeah, right, of course.
Absolutely. So talked to some guys, locally in the fire department in Fairfax, and they all pointed the direction to Manassas Volunteer Firehouse, and they said that it's a busy station. They catch a lot of work. They have a lot of tradition and pride in what they do, and I started getting the whole. This might be a little bit like Rock Hill. Now, Rock Hill is a lot slower, but the pride and the tradition and the wanting to do what's right for the fire service is
The
care made me go to Manassas. And while I was in Manassas, walked in, obviously didn't ask for anything. I was a rookie, Pro B firefighter. Wasn't asking for any kind of special, permissions of doing anything, and was there for, they have a red hat system, which is a probationary firefighter. Did that for a year, and then gradually was a firefighter black hat, then became a lieutenant, then became a captain, then became an assistant chief, and then I became the fire chief over a period of time, became the fire chief there. And that was an exciting transition of being in the Northern Virginia area, volunteering in a very, very traditional fire service kind of department, and and doing what I love to do, which is provide the best service that I can.
That's cool.
Awesome.
Great. That's a great story. That's fantastic.
Is Manassas still having? Do they still have they have a live-in program, or are they how are they doing now?
So I would love to answer that question. I don't know, and the reason. Okay. So kids had 2 boys, and that kind of changed the path of my attention, and now it's haven't been in the door in Manassas now for about 6 or 7 years because of kids, and it's just it's a life-changing experience, as everybody says, but the attention is family, and now obviously work. So I can't speak to what Manassas currently has.
Yeah, but I get that completely, man. And not only that, but when you're in a volunteer system and it's a busy system, right? It takes a lot out of you, man. I mean, I know, when I was chief and did the whole officer thing for a long time, I mean, it really took over my life, and you have to step back and slow down from some of the responsibilities after you go up through the ladder, because if you don't, you're going to get burned out. And I don't care how good the department is. The department can be the best in the nation. You can have your best friends on that department. You're going to get burnout. It happens to everybody.
Well, and I'll tell you the icing on the cake for me, and it was kind of a lesson learned, was I had my newborn baby, couple months old, in my hands, and trying to, calm him down from crying, and then all of a sudden the tones dropped. The tones dropped for a house fire, and not only a house fire, it ended up being 4 houses on fire. And I looked at my wife and I said, you know what, I got to go on this. They need help. I mean, they
right.
continue to send, it's going to a second and third and fourth alarm fire. And guess what? I went to that thing, and hours after being there and, going back to the firehouse, cleaning up, getting back home, reality set in for me. And it's like, you know what, I need to make a decision. And it's not, nobody said that other than myself to myself.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's,
but you're the type of guy that's either going to do it or you're not.
Yeah. I'm either all in or not in.
Right.
And that's how it has to be.
But I think, John, that's such a good point to hit on. And because people, that's like self-care, right? Self-care 101. And like, I don't know what happens with people where they're like, either like they get pressure from the organization or they put it onto themselves, or it's a combination of both. But like, that's such the right call, because all the time we preach in the fire service, family first, family first, family first. And I think guys try to make that decision sometimes. And instead of somebody saying, you know what, we're going to really miss you, but we understand, that message doesn't come out. And I'm happy that you hit on that, because I know there's people out there who are probably struggling with the same thing. And it's okay to pass the reign on to somebody else, let them take over, and you go and be with your family and do what you have to do. Like, that's so important. And I think, like you said, a lot of guys will burn themselves out. And instead of walking away from their firehouse, they're burning down their marriage, they're burning down their family life. And it's like, I think that's incredible that you were, you came back from that and you had that self-reflection, but then you put it into action, because I've seen people not do it.
And listen, I can relate 110%, because I had 2 years left in being chief of the department, and I stepped down. I was one of 3 chiefs ever in the history of my department to step down during an active chief position. I was chief of the department. I had 2 years left on the term, and I came home one night and looked at my wife. We had 2 kids. I have 2 daughters. My 2 youngest are 14 months apart, and so we just had our Lily, and so we had Paige and Lily, and one was a newborn, one was 14 months old, and I came home one night from the firehouse late, like always, and I looked at my wife and I said, I'm done. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to resign the position. And she goes, what? Like, you worked all this time in your fire service career to get to that position, and now you're going to step down? And self-reflection was, there was just no way in hell I was going to be able to juggle both. And I won't do a position unless I can do it. And, the guys at the firehouse now want me to run for captain again in the volunteer house. And, we want you to be the captain of the engine company again. We're in your company. I'm like, no. I'm like, I enjoy being the senior guy in the firehouse, where I can ride the back step or drive if I need to and make that decision, but I can call an audible and not be locked into a responsibility of being an officer, because I know I can't do the position anymore. And in the volunteer service, that's not talked about enough. And John, I'm glad you did hit on that, because I think guys, a lot of guys, and when I say guys, of course, we're talking about just everybody in the fire service, right? I just don't think a lot of people have honest conversations with themselves about what they can, what type of giving they can do, and then how well do they do the job. So I'm grateful that you said that. So it's good. It's a good point.
You guys just hit on so much in that brief 10 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Rob, part of what you were saying, going back to the organization, is from talking to guys, there are unfortunately organizations out there that would not respect the decision that Jon made, that self-reflection, that saying, listen, family first right now, I got to take a step back. When things calm down, hopefully maybe I'll have the time to come back and dedicate. There's agencies out there, that would shun a guy for that. Be like, what does he mean? What do you mean he's not going to come back? What does he mean family first? We say it, but not everybody believes it, or not every organization buys into it. And then Jeremy, what you were saying about, about that all-in attitude that we all have, you know, the four of us here obviously all have that all-in attitude. You know, if you're not going to be all in, who are you helping? You know, I mean, if you were going to come back in as the captain and not be 100% about being the captain, you might as well let the guy that's going to be 100% about it do it, you know?
Agreed.
So those are those conversations that a lot of times don't like to be had at the firehouse.
Which, and for all three of you, I mean, because you've all served in this chief's position, that's actually like another great point of this. If you're getting pressured to be into that position, whether it be a lieutenant, a captain, or even they're asking you to move up and to be a chief, and you're not all in, like how much damage? Because I'd rather keep a position vacant and have, like, you know, if I had, you know, 4 open positions, I'll take 3 people that are all in versus having that one guy who's only in 75% because I'm only gonna get that 75% of the work out of him. Or, you know, like that time that he's supposed to be, I need him to be that 100%. He's not going to perform, and that's going to hurt the organization. Like I think a lot of people they settle and they're like, well, I'll take the 75% or I'll take the 50% commitment because, you know, it's better than nothing. But sometimes that can hurt an organization as well. So
yeah, because you know what it leads to, Rob, and I say this a lot, unfortunately. Usually in the volunteer fire service, when you're electing your lieutenant or whatever your lowest position is, you're electing your future chief. That's usually how it works, you know, because unfortunately, either we push people through the ranks because we've got nobody else, and yeah, maybe they're 50 to 60% committed, but you know, they're not really committed. And then one day we're all, you know, it's that time of the year, and we're all like, oh, you know, it's time for, you know, whoever to become the chief now.
right.
You know, and we're like, how did that happen? We're like, well, you know, he was the lieutenant, the first lieutenant, the captain, the assistant chief, and now we're all standing around wondering how, like, it's election night and he's going to become the chief. You know, he or she is going to become the chief. We you know, it's all part of that, you know, we continue to push people through or allow people to just kind of be there because we have nobody else, or because we're happy with somebody that gives 50%, or we don't want to leave a spot open. And I'm with you. I'd rather have a spot open than have somebody fill it that's never there to help.
Listen, when you're filling positions and you're allowing subpar activities or job performance, the public loses, we lose. Not only do we lose, right? So leave the public out of it for a minute, right? You know, a 4-man well-trained engine company, I'll put against an 8-man engine company any day of the week. The company is not well-trained, right? So the way I look at it too is when we start putting people in positions just to fill the position, or they don't have the ability to do the job to the 100% that it needs to be done to, we're creating a system of failure, and we're creating a system that allows for mediocrity. And I think that's truly, this circles back, John, to our beginning conversation about culture, right? Allow for a culture that doesn't hold people accountable to what they sign up for in a position they want to be in, right? Or we don't hold people accountable for subpar, you know, performance. We're going to lose as a culture, and then we're going to lose as an organization.
Plus, it erodes, like, you know, John gives a speech to somebody about caring, and he sets that standard up and he sets that expectation, and now we have that person who's not doing, not only what, like, he negates everything that John said, but he's getting away with it, and those younger members see it. Of course,
and then when you call them out on it, once you create a system that allows for mediocrity, there's no accountability anymore. How do you hold somebody accountable for their job when we're allowing them to perform at 60% capacity? You hold people to 100%, and when they can't deliver, you can hold them accountable. But that's like punishing, like, listen, I'm a very hands-on, like, father with my children, and I'm disciplinarian, and my kids are please and thank you. They're very well-spoken children, and, you know, every teacher loves them, this and that. And it has to do with parenting. It's accountability. Like, when you lose track of accountability and you don't hold people accountable, you lose. And when you have a system that allows for mediocrity, There's no accountability any longer. You can't hold people accountable for mediocrity.
Yep.
So you're going to lose. You're going to lose every time. And it doesn't matter if it's volunteer or career, because you have career guys in the firehouse that are mediocre at best, or are there for the wrong reasons also, and they're not performing. And what do? They bring down the system. They bring down the company. They bring down the department.
And it circles back to personal accountability, like we mentioned.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're in a leadership position and you're not holding yourself, whether it's a formal leadership position or an informal leadership position, you know, it doesn't matter. If you're not holding yourself to that standard, you cannot expect anybody else to want to hold themselves to the standard either, you know, because they're going to look at you and they're going to be like, it's okay for him. It'll be fine for me, you know? But if they're looking at you doing your best to make everything better and to, you know, continue to better yourself at the art of being a firefighter, then they're going to probably want to come along for the ride.
Yeah. Well, that's it, right? Creating that culture that people want to be a part of. People don't want to be a part of something. You're going to shake loose. You're going to shake loose the mooches and the guys that are clinging on by a thread, because you're not going to tolerate that, right? When you create a system of proficiency and accountability, the scabs go away, the mutts go away, and it doesn't matter. It's like in a career department, you have your A class, you have your A houses, right? You're not going to get a mutt being in one of the busiest engine or truck companies in a city somewhere, because they can't hide there, right? So like it's the same mentality across the board. It doesn't even have to be the fire service. It's just anything in general. Yeah. People like to hide. You have your alphas and then you have everybody else, and the everybody else that can't perform, they want to go hide. And when you have a system that allows them to hide, we're going to lose.
What's for like John, for yourself, like, you know, we're talking about this accountability, and for you as a lieutenant, what's your challenge in leadership and how you approach this situation? Because that's something that's not talked about in the book. Like we talk about, you know, giving size ups and going to fires and stuff like that, but like, how do you, what are the challenges in leadership when you're approaching something like this and you're trying to have that accountability? Because like I said, I never got a book on it that was like, hey, this is how you deal with it. Here's the answers. And I was like, oh, cool. I could just reference page 3. Like,
right. You know what? I go back. I will always go back to that same simple word of care. Here's the thing. The firehouse I work in currently, it's a very large firehouse. We have 3 suppression units and 2 transport units, and they're all staffed. So when you're in a station that has I would just say a large number of folks, you have opportunity of people, you know, with different mindsets of the job, right?
Of course.
But the bottom line is that, you know, everybody comes to the table. They look at the officers. We have 3 officers that are assigned, 2 lieutenants and a captain at the station I'm at, all on the same, 24-hour shift. And if the 3 officers are all working in the same, you know, with the same mindset and the same goal in the end, then everybody behind them knows what's expected, and everybody kind of follows through. You know, one of the things, and I think, you know, everybody's kind of touching on here, especially when you find the member either on a volunteer side or career side, the one that's kind of lagging behind. You know, mentorship is huge, and assigning those folks, especially the young folks, a mentor, somebody that they could trust and look up to and have respect of knowing what's right, what is wrong, how to do, what to do, when to do it is huge in the fire service. And I think sometimes that gets overlooked a lot. Sometimes it's a check mark and people are just assigned somebody and say, okay, he's going to be your mentor. You might have picked the wrong person, right? That what was right for Johnny might not be right for Billy. And I think that is very big when we're trying to get the right message across, especially to young folks walking in the door for the first time, trying to understand, trying to learn. They're either going to go down the right path or they're going to go down the wrong path, and there's no path in between. And if you set them for failure, it's going to be failure for the rest of their career. Doesn't matter if it's volunteer or career. If you set them down the right path, they're going down the right path for their whole career. I promise you that. That's what happened to myself at 16 years old, walking in the door. I basically was given a path to go down the right way that put me to where I am today, which is success. And, you know, we started talking a little earlier about, you know, the Rock Hill Volunteer Fire Department. I'm telling you that is a gem. That place is a gem. They do the right thing all the time, right? They are always giving 100%. They give everything they can, and they never lose focus on the mission. And the mission is to provide the best service they can to the citizens. And at the same time, they care about their members. That is huge. And I don't know what goes on in the rest of this country, but if there's a department out there that does not have that philosophy, they're doing something wrong. And that might be the reason why they're not able to retain members.
Agreed.
Well said.
Good point. Do you know, so your mentor, do you stay in touch with him?
That's me to my next question. Who was your mentor?
Yeah. My mentor passed away.
Oh, that's sorry to hear
Yeah.
that.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's a great question. But I will tell you that there are several folks in the Rock Hill you know, firehouse there that, you know, when I go down and I visit and I, you know, or go up and I visit and I go to a Thursday night drill, you know, and I kind of shoot the shit and kind of, you know, it brings me right back to 1993, you
Awesome.
know, walking in that door, you know, being 16 years old, you know, and here's the thing, you're going to make mistakes, right? Nobody's perfect. But the key is that those guys, those mentors walk you through those mistakes, help you get through those mistakes, and you move on from it, you learn from it, and it makes you a better person.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Brian, what about you? Like, who was your mentor? And I mean, if you're comfortable talking about it, obviously, but like, who was your mentor for coming up in the fire service?
I had a bunch of them, you know, growing up. You know, probably one of my earliest mentors was actually ended up being my wife's uncle. So, you know, Carl Hammond, you know, Carl
Okay, yeah.
did a job for Monticello for years. He was, you know, probably one of my earliest mentors. You know, always, you know, he always had a solid work ethic, you know, always wanted to do the right thing for the community. Kind of led me into the path of being a fire instructor. You know, and then we drifted apart for a few years, you know, differences of opinions on some things. We ended up circling back a few years later. It happens, you know. But, you know, then when I got into teaching, you know, some of the guys that I taught with, you know, became my mentors, you know, looking up to them. You know, when I first got hired on as an instructor, Jim Cavallo, who I don't know if that's who John's mentor was.
That's exactly who it was.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Jim Cavallo was a state fire instructor up here when I first got on the job as a fire instructor. And, you know, he was always kind of a rough around the edges kind of guy, I think. You know, like, he could very easily rub you the wrong way, but his heart was in the right place, and he took the job very seriously. And I'll never forget, I wasn't officially hired yet for the state. You know, I wasn't officially hired yet, and I showed up at the training center to help out with a live fire evolution or something. And I was so proud because I already had my like fire instructor T-shirt, you know, although I wasn't officially on the job yet. And Jim looked at me and he said, "Putting the cart before the horse there, aren't you?" You know, and I was like, you know, and that was the comment you would get from, and he didn't mean anything bad by it. He was breaking my balls, you know, but, you know, he was right, you know, but guys like him, you know, again, we disagreed. You know, unfortunately, you know, he did pass away, and I didn't get to work with him as much as I would have liked to have worked with him. But
let me ask you this, Brian. Like, I think that type of thing, right, is so important because Yeah, it's ball busting, but there's
Yeah.
truth behind it, and
Oh, absolutely.
that bit of truth is something that stuck with you. And you know, you remember that story all these years later, and that was his way of tutoring you and letting his influence down upon you to say like, hey man, like, you know, this isn't, you know, there's another way, or I love that. I mean, I try to do that now. I mean, I think I have more influence in my fire department today than I ever have, whether I was chief of the department, assistant chief on down, company captain, it didn't matter. I think now the sphere of influence I have is because I've been there, I did it, and now I'm one of the more senior guys that still will take the knob out of a young kid's hand in a second, right? And pull the seniority card when I have to, so I can make the rig to go on that job mutual aid or something. But at the end of the day, like, you know, there's that level of proficiency that I bring to the table, and then there's a level of respect. And I think what happens is that we need guys like that. We need more of those guys that you know, you put the cart before the horse type of guys, because a little informal ball busting goes a very long way, and it sticks with these kids. And I think it's super important that we have guys still in the firehouse that will do that. And I think the other word that we've got to talk about is tactfully, right? There's a way to do it tactfully, meaning you can bust balls and break stones all you want, but you have to do it in a manner that is constructive. I think people lose that tact part of it at times, and it becomes more of an assault than a correction, you know? And I think that's happening too.
You know, and he was getting ready to retire from instructing at the time, and I was the new guy coming in. I think I actually took his spot when I got hired, but yeah, that was kind of his way of letting me know, you know, teaching me a lesson. And and you know, and I do remember it, and I'll always remember it. But you know, I also remember the fact that and that was 2003, 2004. I had just come out of being chief in Monticello. I thought I knew it all back then, you know, and now I look at myself.
How old were you, Brian?
I was 30.
Yeah.
You know, so
I was a young chief as well.
Yeah, and I look at myself now compared to myself back then, and I realize I didn't know shit.
Yep.
You know, I really didn't.
No, I agree.
You know?
I get it. I get it now. Guys are like, I can't believe you just said that. And I go, why? They go, when you were chief, this would have never flied. This would have never flown. You wouldn't have allowed this to happen. And now you sit back and like watch it happen. And I go, yeah, I'm older, I'm wiser, you know, or I like to think I am.
That's what it says.
You know what it is? It's maturity and life experiences. We're pushing through so many guys through the firehouse that, you know, with these younger kids, it's, you know, there has to be a level of maturity. And I think now more than ever, maturity, the definition of maturity has changed. You know, they might be mature in some areas, but much more immature in other areas today versus the gentleman of 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, you know? And I think maturity is very different today, how we judge maturity versus back then, and so on. But what do you see, like, volunteer career, hop in on this, like, what do you see with the new guys coming in, the recruit class, you know, whether it's in Fairfax or Brian, the new kids that are coming through your volunteer house? There's a lot of good kids coming through. There's a lot of good people getting on the job. You know, we have our battles. There's a constant struggle of, you know, this younger age group just doesn't get it. They're disconnected. They're this, they're that. And I'm a firm believer that this happens every generation. So, you know, when I joined, I was a piece of shit too, right? And you know, and now the next generation and so on. So, but I'm just curious, like, what your thoughts are. Jon, maybe start with you, brother, as a lieutenant. I mean, you're carrying some weight now, and you got probies that are looking up to you, and so on. So I'm just curious what your take is, you know, on the new class, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I could speak for a guy that got on the job. Our newest guy's got about 4 or 5 months on. And I'm telling you, we and I can't speak for everyone that came out of this class, but we definitely got a solid individual. And from day one walking in the firehouse, he was ready to learn. He was ready to absorb like a sponge, and everybody knew that. And again, I hate to keep harping on that care thing, but you can tell in his eyes that he was there to better himself, to learn from the folks that are there that did it before him. That even though assigned a mentor, he wanted to learn from everybody, right? That's huge, right? If you walk in, and again, career, volunteer, you walk in the station and you show interest, everybody around you wants to teach. They want to give you knowledge that they have learned. They want to pass it on, but you have to show it. If you walk in the door, it doesn't matter what firehouse, anywhere, and you show no interest, nobody's going to go out there and grab you by your hand and show you what needs to happen, right? But everyone in that station, everyone in that firehouse is willing to give you everything they have. You just have to be willing to either A, accept it, and B, want to go and better yourself. And to speak for the individual, our new rookie at our firehouse, from day one, walked in, signed in the book, was ready to learn, was ready to go to work. And I can't ask for anything better. I mean, that is, as an officer in an department, that's what you want, and like you said, there is the other way. I mean, there are, folks out there maybe not doing it for all the right reasons, or for the reasons that we think are the right reasons. That's a little more challenging, right?
Sure is. Yeah.
But we've been fortunate, at least, with our newest rookie, that's exactly, I mean.
How often do you have probies coming through, John?
We usually get at least one a year, at least, per shift. We're a busy house. So, obviously they try to send, rookies to busy stations. So we're fortunate enough. And again, that's another thing that you have a good shift. When your shift wants rookies, I mean, that speaks volumes, right? Sure. How many guys out there are like, I'm done. Give us a couple of years off. No, it's, bring on another one. We're ready, and it brings a lot to the shift as well. Like,
talk about that. Yep.
Yeah. Not only is it good for the rookie, but it's even better for the shift. I mean, it keeps us on our toes, right? Yeah. It makes us want to better ourselves, because we know that if we don't, he or she's watching, right? So it's huge. At least I feel to bring on a new person, bring on that rookie, or in a volunteer house, bring on a new member, and it kind of sometimes it can spark the fire again, right? I hate to use that word, but it can kind of spark it again. You have a shift that maybe is again, fortunate that I don't have it, but you might have a shift that signs in the book, they're ready to start their shift work, and are they feel like they're forced to do things. And then you have other shifts that are like, man, I can't wait to get out there and do something, regardless if it's a call, or training or whatever it is. And for a rookie to have a shift that wants to teach, that wants to show, and to kind of, hand the knowledge over to the next newest person, man, that is a blessing.
Well, I think it's
yeah, go ahead, Rob.
No, it's just good for like the shift as well, because like one of the things that I find is like we talked about it a little bit before, is that like conflict communication, and I like having I like getting a probie on the shift, because if somebody comes up to me and they're like, hey, like, John didn't do this, and I'm like, well, did you talk to him about it? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, well, then how is he supposed to know that he did or did not do that? Like, go have the conversation with him. It's okay. And it's like, because like I said, they don't know how to do it, so now I'm forcing it. And then sometimes I'm a dick if they don't do it. And I'll be like, oh, hey, did you talk to John about that thing before? And, and Brian's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, oh, cool. All right. Hey, John, Brian had a problem before, but he didn't want to come to you about it. So let's talk about it right now. Now it's an awkward situation, but Brian sure as shit ain't gonna like next time, slink at the opportunity because he's, he knows he's gonna be held accountable by me. So like I think it's one of the other, advantages is that it's like a around the table leadership development for the people that are on the shift too. Because
and John, I have to think as a boss, right? Like how awesome is it to watch the excitement go through your guys, right? Like I always like engagement. Like I love standing back and watching the like ding ding, light bulbs are going off and all these guys are like hopping in. And then, when we go places and we engage people as National Fire Radio, a lot of times senior guys shy away from us, they walk off. 20 minutes later, they're in the middle of the conversation telling stories. They have to warm up to it. But man, it is so exciting to see that engagement. It's so exciting. And I'm sure as a boss, right, you have a big firehouse and you get a probie in there and all of a sudden a guy with 1 year on and a guy with 30 years on, they're excited to have them there and they're engaging them. I mean, just watching that as a boss has to be a fantastic feeling.
You know what? I take pictures of it. I literally do. I mean, I take pictures of it and it's like, it's a quick image of the priceless acts of what these folks are doing to just go out there and to continue to train and to give it its all and give that 100% now to the next newest person. And I capture it in images because that's how it kind of reminds me when I go.
Oh,
John, you froze out.
That's not a good way. That's not a good view to freeze on, John.
The
beach house Wi-Fi, baby. Rob, mark the time on this. Where are we? So we can.
You got it. I don't know how.
1:32.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Let me text John.
Yeah, just tell him to sign out. We'll come back in.
I got.
Brian, since we're kind of like breaking right now, where do you want to take this, man? Where do you want to? You got any ideas of conversations that you want to hop into? We're.
I'm thrilled with where it's going so far.
Okay.
It's great.
Good. I want to talk about you. We've been hitting on Jon and Fairfax, but
no, it's good.
You a little bit. Are you? So my question is, and I don't want to. I'm glad we have this opportunity, real quick, to ask this question. But are you the reason why you didn't become a career fireman? Just curious. None of my business. Was it ever a thought or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll dive into that. No.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Because I know for me, like I had plenty of opportunity.
Yeah.
The family business kept me from that because I felt that the future was in the family business and not.
Yeah. Just make sure you check the participant thing to see if John's trying to get back in.
Yeah, he's not.
Okay.
Not yet. So. Yeah, I was curious. I know. Usually.
There he is.
You there?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well,
Yeah. You know what? That's a 9-year-old kid that touched something he wasn't supposed
to. Hey, we have to hold him, John. We got to hold him accountable.
Yeah, we will address that. No, I don't know where I apologize. I was kind of on a little rant there, but.
Oh, no. You're fine. All right, Sebi, just we're marking, we're editing. Here we go. So, John, you remember where you were with this or no?
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of leave it as the picture thing, the moment thing. Watching some of the either the senior guys or other guys on the shift, kind of an informal, formal kind of way of either showing how we do business or the right thing to do, or talk about tactics, talk about things around the firehouse, talk about the fire. The ladder truck, the engine, the medic unit, the rescue squad, or whatever the unit is, whatever the topic is, they're always ready to engage and pass on the knowledge. And like I said before, I capture that in pictures because when I go back and I look at my phone and I look at pictures and I see, on December 1st, 2018, it makes me smile. It's
Yeah.
you know.
For sure.
I love it. And as the boss, I mean, it's you're helping facilitate that culture that people want to be a part of. You want So how long have you been a lieutenant now?
I've been a lieutenant. It's a great question. Got promoted in 2011, 9 years.
So in your 9 years, I'm sure you've seen some of your guys get promoted. No?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So I mean, that's got to be just an incredible feeling for you to know that your tutelage and your company, your house, is putting out qualified officers to take that position.
That is 100% correct. Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
100%.
Awesome. Brian, let's hop into you, brother. Let's talk about your background a little bit. The professional volunteer, you're chief and chief again, no?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so you're a glutton for punishment is what that is.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I enjoyed it the first time.
Yep.
I'm enjoying it again this time.
Good.
You've been there. It goes fast.
Sure.
I when I made the move to where I am now, I really, kind of like Jon talking about Manassas before. When I walked in the door at Rock Hill, I really didn't have any expectations. I just wanted to be a fireman. I wanted to do my thing. And, those guys took me in like I was a 20-year member, just made me part of the family immediately. There was a hole in the line 2 years after I joined for an assistant chief. And, they put me in the ranks, and, I'm pretty motivated. I can have some crazy ideas sometimes, but I'm never going to lead anybody down a path I wouldn't go down myself. And, when I first got in, there's some guys that were like, I don't know how this, I think they were like, I don't know how this is going to work out, but it's such an amazing organization that I think they could see that, all I wanted to do was help make the organization better than it already was. And it was already great, and all I wanted to do was keep taking it in that direction. And, I'm thrilled to be surrounded by people that are just so supportive and just want to do nothing but continue to make the organization better every single day and make themselves better every single day. And
we talk about that all the time. Surround yourself with like-minded people.
Yeah.
It's only going to better you,
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long you've been a volunteer now? Since when? I have 1990.
90, yeah. So I joined Monticello in 90. Kind of, the story of why I joined is not very traditional. I have been at my 9-to-5 job for 31 years, I think, 31 or 32 years. I work for a family-owned wholesale plumbing and heating supply. My dad retired from there after 50-something years. So not a family business, but
a family business.
Kind of a family business.
I get it.
Our name's not on the building, but we've been there for a long time collectively.
Sure.
So, I started that job after college. I found out it wasn't really my thing. All the guys I was working with were volunteers somewhere. Guys from Jeffersonville, Youngsville, out in Rob's area there, and I noticed that, that they're wearing this big Minotaur 1 back in those days on their side. It was like a brick. And, I noticed this trend that this pager's going off and these guys are leaving work all the time. What the hell is this all about? Here I'm on the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Didn't think I really knew any volunteer firefighters at the time, but just being surrounded by those guys kind of gave me the itch, and I went down to the Monticello Firehouse, asked for an application, and here we are 30 years later, still doing it.
What was your hook? Like when you got there, you walked in the door. I mean, obviously there was a really big hook because you have dedicated your life.
I remember my first call, I was scared shitless, and it was like a bullshit MVA or like a car fire, but I remember the pager going off, and I remember the guys at work telling me, go. It was like the end of the day. It was like 4:45, and they're like, yo, man, go, get going. And I'm like, I didn't know what to do, you know? I'm like, go where? And they're like, go to the fire. And I'm like, you know, and I was legit scared shitless. Like, I didn't know what I was supposed to do when I got there.
Right.
But, you know, I think the camaraderie, the brotherhood, just being around people. And once I got settled in, you know, there were guys that I graduated high school with that were there that I didn't know, you know. So I was surrounded by people that I really didn't know were involved, that we all kind of joined at the same time. And it's a blessing, man. You know, the amount of people that I've gotten to meet over the years and become friendly with, and, you know, that I'm still friendly with all these years later. It's,
You know what I love? I love, and you hit on it kind of right there, is that you know, guys from high school that you didn't know, and what I love about the fire service is how we don't care, and now more than ever with everything going on in society and everything right now, like the fire service has such a blind eye to age, race, you know, male, female. Like I obviously there's some old school mentality out there, but
sure.
at the end of the day, like I know that like there's no distinction between that 19-year-old kid and 75-year-old man in my firehouse, right? There's just no distinction. Just like in any other house, there should not be. And I think that's an interesting conversation because outside of the fire service, that doesn't exist anywhere else. My friends that have nothing to do with the fire service have a hard time believing that I'm friendly with guys in their 70s and kids that are in their you know, still teens and early 20s, and they have a hard time subscribing to that. And I think that's fun. I think that's what makes it so good. I remember when I was in high school, you know, we had a couple kids join from different ages in high school, different ages. And it was like, I was a senior and these kids were like, oh, you know, this and that. And they were like, you know, like nerdy kids. And then you have the jocks, and then you have the popular kids, and you have the, you know, this and that. And but they might not have like, were close in school, but all of a sudden they joined the fire department together, and they become friendly, and then they become friends. And it's like, it's an institution that really just puts people together because the institution is greater than the individual. And that's the best part about this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You know, this has really set us all up for just an amazing life lessons, and so on, and people. And that's what I try to instill in my kids. You know, look at the firehouse. I go, you know, your dad's friends with these guys, and it doesn't matter. You respect the individual, and it doesn't matter who the individual is.
For sure.
So all right. So you go to your first call, you're scared shitless, right?
Yeah.
And then there's a hook. I mean, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, right? Do you remember the first fire when you were like, "Yep, I got this. Like, this is my go-to. I'm in."
You know, unfortunately, I don't remember my first fire. I remember my first like real motor vehicle accident, and it was real. You know, like MCI, people all over the place. You know, you know, and I remember that vividly. I really don't remember my first fire. I mean, I remember fires over the years, you know, but yeah, it's just, you know, just something I've loved ever since I kind of stepped foot in there, you know. And there's been highs and lows, you know. There's times there's been highs and lows. There's been times where I'm like, oh, why am I still doing this, you know? But they're few and far between. You know?
But then you also get that hook where it's like just when you're hitting that low, and we talked about that earlier with the peaks and valleys, and everybody goes through that burnout and low, right? But then all of a sudden, like something just picks you back up, and you're back in it the next day, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Brian, is there a call that you remember that like or John, that you guys were at together where like it was just like that, you know, like because I mean one of the things I always thought was cool was when I was a young firefighter, like that was when the fast team stuff started coming out, and Rock Hill and Monticello were working together a lot. Was there a call in that time frame that you guys both were at the scene, like, and it was just like you know, a kick-ass job where you guys were like,
geez, I'm sure there's lots of them if we thought about it. I mean, you know, like I said, in the 2 years when I was the chief, John was assistant chief, right? I'm right about that.
Yep.
John was the assistant chief, and you know, I mean, we always pretty much ran together. I mean, that's always kind of been the way it was. You know, I always counted on Rock Hill when I was the chief of Monticello, because I always knew they brought people to the game, you know, and they were going to show up and be ready to work. And I know we've done some. I know we've done some stuff over the years. I mean, the fast team stuff. I mean, we did some. We started getting into tech rescue in Monticello back then. I know we did some trench collapses and stuff that I think we were all at. There's been a few of them.
Yeah, I mean, I talk fast team alone. I just I can't remember specifics on a call or two that we maybe ran or bumped into each other, but back let's think about this. Had to have been late 90s, right? When did we do the fast team? Because we kind of all went to was it Poughkeepsie or Dutchess?
Camp Smith. Yeah, when they used to do training at Camp Smith.
Camp Smith.
That's a ways ago. That's the 90s, man.
Yeah.
So we were.
It had to be 99, or what was called Worcester, because that was when I remember when Worcester, that was like the push. The push.
98, 99 was when all the firefighter survival fast stuff started happening, because and we were fortunate, because I mentioned Carl before. He was pretty involved at the time, teaching already, and he had made some really good friends and connections down in the FDNY, and a lot of those guys were very influential in the the firefighter survival fast programs. John Salka was one of them. Ricky Tanangretta, a lot of these super solid guys, and they were the first ones out there doing the survival and the fast training. So we kind of got to benefit from that because of that personal relationship. Yeah. So we did some of those classes right here in district, whether it was in Monticello and the Rock Hill guys came and joined us, or we went down to Camp Smith because that was functioning at the time. But yeah, it was late 90s. I want to say 98, 99.
Yeah.
I think it was an interesting time in the fire service. A lot of things were changing then.
Yeah.
And so on. Because I joined in 95. I was never a junior fireman, so I joined at 18. In 95, I joined, and so on. And I just remember, hip boots were just going out, long coats were just going out. Respiratory protection became an issue. Fast team, right? All the tech stuff started happening. I mean, it was all hazmat was just becoming a thing. It was all this crazy shit going on. It was certainly an interesting time in the fire service.
Yeah, it's funny. I tell guys about that era, and they don't get it now because, they walk into the firehouse, and as a brand new probie, we give them pretty decent gear,
Yeah.
And then when they graduate firefighter one, we get them measured and we hand them all this brand new, beautiful turnout gear. And my first set of full turnout gear, like pants, boots, coat, my parents bought for me for like a birthday gift, because the department they weren't giving them out back then. When I first joined, I got 3/4 hip boots and a long coat, and a freaking salad bowl helmet.
I remember
your stuff's on the pipe rack in the back.
Yeah.
Youngsville's one engine used to have that whole rack of boots, and the coats were hanging off the side and the rail with the helmets. I mean, that was what my job was when I was brand new. Is when you get to the fire, get up there so the old guys don't have to climb up and start tossing them gear if they need it.
Yeah.
Call out boot sizes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll tell you a funny thing about the fast team real quick. When we kind of started to assemble a fast team kind of approach, I remember going to a fire that department called for the fast team, and we showed up, and they expected us to go fast into the fire. They didn't even know what fast team, the concept of it, they thought we were some kind of elite interior firefighters.
Yeah.
And
that's fine. I'll take that over. I'll take that any day.
Little did we
fast
know.
team's here. Get the hell out of my way. Let me show you how fast I am.
You're right.
That's funny.
What, Jeremy, one thing I want to talk about when you guys were talking to John about taking in that new probie in the career house.
Yeah.
I think on the volunteer side of things, and I'm fortunate to see it from both sides, from the training side and from the officer side. Again, it goes back to the support system in the firehouse. We keep kind of circling back to this whole thing, back to that accountability and back to the support system and back to the culture. So, I know that, if you read publications and you listen, there's a constant topic about the decline of volunteerism in the fire service, and lack of recruitment. Now this year has been a bit of a challenge for us, as it's been a challenge for everybody, because, we're not having meetings, we're not doing a lot of stuff because of COVID. But last year, out of the 12 months of the year, I think maybe there was maybe 2 months where we didn't take in at least 1 or 2 new members, right? Out of a 12-month year. And I think that comes back to, the culture of the organization, how you're promoting yourself and supporting those people. So, like Jon mentioned, the mentorship program. Putting on my other hat, the recruits that come into the academy that are successful are the ones that have the support back at their stations. The ones that come in and they're just kind of like shipped out there, like, here you go, bro, here's your gear, here's your stuff, be out at the training center Wednesday at 7:00. Good luck. Let us know when you're done. They're not successful, because they just don't have the support. They don't have the people to go back to teach them what they're being learned in the classroom. So, again, it all keeps circling back to that culture.
Absolutely. It's, it was funny because, like, to kind of bring it to kind of like sum up the last few minutes, just culture has everything to do with the foundation that's laid before. We were just talking about the 90s. That's when we came up through, right? And we think there was a big change then. And then you talk to the guys from the 80s and then the 70s and the 60s. And then you talk to the kids today. And Brian, you said it. You said, now today, hey, we give the kid a brand new set of gear and blah, 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 blah. And I think part of that, though, too, is the institution requires it, right? We can't play that audible card anymore, right? We can't. A lot of decision making has to be done way and not as we go. I think part of getting your lumps when we were younger in the fire service, the system allowed for us to fall down, get bruised by it, but it made us better. And now we're not allowed to let people fall down.
Right.
They can fall down on little things, and then we have to be there to help them back up, right? But I mean, I think there's something to be said for, holding people to that accountability of being responsible for themselves. I think as an organization, it's important to let your probies fail. I think it's important to let them see the difference, let them see poor leadership, and let them see good leadership. What a well-oiled engine company and truck company does versus a shitty one. In the volunteer service, I mean, shit, I don't know how your system runs, but you have the potential of running, I could go second, third, fourth alarm to probably 10 different municipalities. And so you get to see the differences between your company and that other company. And you get to see the difference between their senior guys and our senior guys. And then they get to formulate that opinion. And more so now than ever, we're doing more mutual aid runs. We're doing more work with other departments. I have to think even on the career side now, more than ever, there's more mutual aid happening than ever before, where a lot of departments used to be able to handle their own stuff. Now they don't have the manpower, or they lack the initial alarm response if it's a confirmed job, or they want a second due truck, and then your RIT team and a safety chief and accountability and all the rack unit. Like, it just keeps going and going and going, right? So
working fire task force.
Yeah, right. I mean, it just, you can title it, wrap it up, put it on a bow, like whatever you want to call it. But we're calling more and more resources. But what I'm getting, we're getting more opportunity to perform now. Maybe the fire volume's down, but there's still a lot of response. There's more responses now than ever, right? And so on. So you want those kids to be there and be present so that they can see the form, fit, and function of all the other companies to compare. I think it's important. And so let them formulate that opinion. And if you're worried about your younger guys formulating an opinion, then you better start looking at your own house and figure out why. And chances are it's because you're not oiled up, man. You're not ready to go, and you're not giving these kids a good foundation.
I agree. And listen, at the end of the day, they need to understand it's a life or it can be a life or death job, right? My biggest fear with some of the training stuff is that, is it being watered down too much? Are we babysitting too much? You know, like I understand you got to mentor and help people through, but when, you know, when somebody's telling me I can't, okay, I'll listen to you tell me I can't once, maybe twice, you know, and I'll help you through. I'll do my best to keep helping you, to keep leading you in the right direction. But at the end of the day, you can't, again, it comes back to that personal accountability. You can't have that I can't attitude when you're doing this job, because when my life's on the line or somebody else's life's on the line, the last thing I want somebody doing is quitting, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
listen, not everybody's cut out for this job.
no, absolutely not.
You know, you have basketball players. Why? Because they're 6'8". They practice. They do 500 free throws a day their whole life so that they're good, right? Like they train and they're physically capable of doing that. I could never be a professional basketball player. I could train as hard as I want. I just couldn't do it. It just wouldn't happen because I don't have the physicality to do it, right? The height and everything else. So like you have to be realistic too. And even in the volunteer fire service, like you have to be realistic about expectations of the individual. And sometimes it's not. I mean, there has to be that conversation too, no?
Absolutely. You know, and listen, and it ties into the individual. It ties into the leadership. So, some of these leaders know when they send these guys out to accomplish a task that they know damn well they are never going to be able to accomplish, right? The only reason, and I say that as things I see in the instructional world, you know, you don't want to do your job. You don't want to have that tough conversation by saying, look, bro, you might not be cut out for this right now. Let's get some time in under your belt. Let's develop some of your skills. Then we'll send you off to be an interior firefighter. But no, they don't want to have that tough conversation. So they send them off to an instructor somewhere and they let them have that tough conversation with them, you know, when they can't do the skill.
But then they don't.
Right. Or
the academy passes them, pushes them
or,
through. They send them back.
Yeah.
I mean, I was talking to Rob about this, and you know, not to name anything, but there were Proby schools that, like, for certain reasons, they weren't teaching guys certain aspects of the job, and so they're like, well, your department will teach you when you come back, and then, you know, like, what are we doing? What type of culture and society are we putting forward?
Right.
John, I have to think with a 1.5-year hiring process, you get on there, I got to think Proby school is what, 26 weeks, you said?
26 weeks, yep.
That's so legit, man. That's going to shake loose. That's going to shake loose the majority of the guys that aren't going to cut it.
Yeah, no, there's plenty of opportunity to figure out who's going to make it and who is not. You know, this is not the right thing for them. You know, and I said this, I think, a little earlier, you know, with the application process just in the volunteer side, is that you might think this is what you want to do, or let's go down a different route. Let's say your whole family was doing it and you were kind of pressured into doing it, and you fill out the application, you go through the process, you now are a member, and it's not for you. And now you're pressured from family, you know, what do you mean you want to quit, or why are you going there on Thursday night for a drill, or you know, you haven't gone to the last 6 calls, what's going on? So I mean, the bottom line is it's either you're either all in or you're not in. And there's no middle grounds. I mean, and unfortunately not everybody is cut out for being a firefighter. I mean, that's the bottom line. The nice thing is, you know, in the fire service, especially on the volunteer side, there might be other things that you can do to contribute back to the community or back to the fire service. So there are other you know, avenues to kind of go down. And like I think you guys are all saying, that tough, hard conversation might need to be had, or you're able to get your message to them and they kind of just come back to you and have that conversation you thought you needed to have with them. They manned up and said, you know what, this isn't for me. And then, you know, you got to figure out, okay, well, is it a time commitment thing? Because I mean, we always talk about, especially on the volunteer side, you know, commitment of time is it's huge. I mean, the requirements to just stay as an active member is probably increasing, yearly. So that also, is a contributing factor maybe on somebody. It might be, I just, this Joe Blow is, he hasn't showed up to the last 5 drills. Well, let's talk to him. Well, nobody has talked to him. Let's send him a letter. Well, here's the thing, and I'm a firm believer. Email is great. Letters are great, and they're all paper trails. But at the end of the day, a face-to-face conversation speaks volumes.
All day long.
Yep.
All day long. And that's that accountability. That's the willingness to be able to put yourself in that position to confront an individual and have a conversation. And like we said, I mean, that is missing now more than ever. And I think we have an obligation, if we want to see our fire companies succeed, if we want to see the fire service trend in the right way, we can't allow ourselves to go to mediocrity. We can't allow ourselves not to be men anymore. And as sexist or chauvinistic as that might sound, I mean it in a representation that, you have to be, this is a job that can kill you. This is a job that you are going to bleed. You're going to get smoke inhalation. You're going to cut yourself. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to break something. And you know what? You're going to see tragedy. And that takes a certain type of individual. And that type of individual also typically is the type of person that can confront issues and do right and wrong and know right and wrong and correct wrong to make it right. And I think that's important. And I think now more than ever, we need to hold people accountable, and we need to have the right type of people in this industry leading the way and leading that charge. I truly believe in that.
Listen, you never know who's walking in the door, right? I mean, we started off the conversation. You're talking to 2 guys with no real family background in the fire service that just happened to walk into a volunteer station one day. And, here's one guy that's, was a volunteer for years and now's been on the job as a career fireman for, almost coming on 20 years, and another guy that's been doing it for 30 years, so you never know who's going to walk in that door, that could be around for a long, long time,
I agree. So listen, we've been going a while. I mean, we've been hitting this pretty hard. What else? Anything else? I want to start kind of wrapping. We've been going for like an hour and a half, so
cool.
It goes quick, I know, and so on. But I'm just curious. You guys are, you have the same foundation, and then you parted ways. And Jon, you chased your career down south, and Brian, you stayed at home, and you're kicking ass. And you guys are just both bring so much value to the fire service. And again, I think tonight the real topic is the foundation, right? What it's doing, what we bring to that foundation, that brick we add, and then what that foundation does for stability for us as individuals, and so on. And so I thank you guys for being on tonight. I mean, I think we hit on some really deep stuff tonight. It's definitely topics that everybody is dealing with across the country in the fire service, whether career or volunteer. These are issues that are happening in every single kitchen, in every single firehouse. These are conversations that are happening more and more. And when I keep seeing on Instagram all these like 30+ year guys retiring out of like the FDNY and so on, you have to think, like, I always take a second, read his name, and I always have to think about, like, man, like 35 years in retiring in a job like that. And, you're talking over 3.5 decades of service. Imagine the change in people they've seen. Imagine the type of people they started the job with and the people they're ending the job with. And if anybody should have an opinion on it, it's guys like that, right? And so, I value that. And I think that everybody should recognize that and understand that everybody has a different background and everybody has something else to bring to the table. And when you bring it to the fire service, you got to leave the damage behind, and you got to go in 100%. You got to put yourself in 100% to this institution, because this institution will take care of you if you take care of it. And I can't believe that any more than I do. But anyway, Jon, any last comments, thoughts, ideas, concerns, topics we didn't hit that you want to spend another hour and a half on?
No, I want to honestly thank you. I'm honored to be on here. you know, the message of getting out there that, you know, the fire service is still here. It's going to be here for decades and decades. And really, if you're out there, you're listening to this and you're down and out and you feel like, you know, your firehouse, your department, you know, whatever the case may be, you're kind of spiraling in a direction where you feel like, you know what, this isn't where it was. Well, you can effectively make that change, right? We talk about how that negativity is kind of could basically take over, right? But at the same time, being positive and showing, you know, the other folks that are in that firehouse, you know, listen, man, take your negativity and take it somewhere else, right? We need to be positive. We need to keep marching forward. We need to have the mission, and the mission is to always care about you, yourself, and the public. And if you keep that in mind, only good things are going to occur.
Agreed. Well said. Very well said. And I'll tell you now more than ever, man, we get, and Brian, I'm sure you're getting it too on your platform, but man, do we have people reaching out every single day asking for advice on how to deal with just that topic alone, Jon. And we could spend a whole night just talking about that. But you brought up some very good points there, and thank you. That's fantastic. Fantastic. Brian, how about yourself?
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, Jon ended it really, really well. I mean, and like you just said, Jeremy, I hear from people all the time now that are finding challenges in the volunteer fire service, whether, you know, it's organizational challenges, or they don't feel that they have the opportunity to advance, or they don't like the culture. You know, I mean, my biggest the biggest advice I could give to somebody is, you know, don't let somebody else destroy your love of the job. You know, if this is something that you enjoy and it fulfills you in some way, don't let somebody else take that away from you. Don't let an organization take that away from you. If, you know, do your best to make the changes that you can make, and work hard at it. And, you know, if you got to make hard decisions and make a move in your career, well, then make a move in your career. But if you have passion for this, we want people like that in the fire service. I don't care where in the fire service it is. Mm-hmm. Those are the people that we want. Don't let somebody else destroy that passion.
Amen. I agree. And just hit on real quick your podcast again, please. Give us where they can find you and what you're doing and so on about your platform, please.
Appreciate it. So it's I'm on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Professional Volunteer. You can find me on YouTube. Also, you just got to search the Professional Volunteer and look for my logo. You know, I'm just trying to spread the message of professionalism in the volunteer fire service, and a lot of the things that we just touched on. I think I'm 22 episodes in. I've had some phenomenal guests from all over the country that bring a lot of different views to the table on some of these things. And yeah, I'm just honored that people listen to me. You know, I really am.
Awesome. Well, you're sharing a great message, and you know, and I think we need more people like you out there that want to lead the charge and try to help shape and better the institution that we're all part of. So I thank you for being on tonight and being a guest. And Jon, much success down in Fairfax, brother. Stay safe. And I absolutely appreciate you taking time out on your vacation to be on with us tonight.
Thank you.
Means the world. I'm sorry about the argument you'll have with your wife later. But anyway, I mean, I thank both of you guys very, very much. And for what Rob and I are doing, you know, it's meeting guys like you. I mean, obviously you have a past with Rob, but for myself tonight, sitting here and getting to know your stories a little bit, I'm looking forward to when our paths cross and we can, you know, have a cold one and you know, really just shake hands and be brothers. And that's what I think this is all about. And I can't stress that enough. I enjoy every opportunity we get to do something like this. And so that's my selfish plug for myself. And I think Rob has the same feeling, is that, you know, what I get to take away from experiences like this tonight, I wish everybody could take away. And so, you know, just the message shared tonight and the commonality of the conversation goes a very long way. So, gentlemen, thanks for being here tonight with us.
Listen, I just want to say, you know, what you guys are doing, you know, motivates guys like myself, and I'm sure guys like Jon, to get out there and talk, you know. So, you know, you're setting a good platform, and listen, thanks for having me on, and we're going to get you up to look at that Rosenbauer when things are all said and
We'll
done.
get it done. I see your hat there. So listen, I'm in road trip. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
So anyway, Robert, another good night, pal.
Yeah. Thank you both for being on. It meant a lot to me, especially having you, like getting to watch you two as a young firefighter and a young EMT, and having Jon come as my medic a couple times out in Jeffersonville and in Monticello. So, like, thank you so much for doing this tonight. So
You got it. Thank you.
Rob.
Again, just like Brian said, you know, I'm very much honored and thankful that I had the opportunity to talk. So, thank you. It's it's a blessing to get a message out to the fire service, because the fire service, to me, is the backbone of the United States. And,
Hell yeah, brother.
And you know, keep plugging out there, doing the right thing, and you know, go out there and do what is right for the community.
Awesome. And on that, we're wrapping. Guys, thanks for tuning in tonight on another episode with Brian Stoller and Jon Stern, two incredible guests tonight. We hit on some great topics, and to sit here and share just conversation with brothers is what this is all about. So I thank everybody for tuning in and checking us out. As always, for Rob and myself, take care, be safe. We'll see you at the next one.